Hello everyone, welcome back. We're getting now into our topic of examining firepower threat defense licensing. Starting with the two major categories, which makes things really easy, whether it's going to be a classic licensed approach or a smart licensing approach. The classic license approach, I'm just going to really hone in on the word classic because it's going to be for our 7000 and 8000 series firepower appliances. Classic appliances, the next gen IPS-V, and the firepower services for the ASA. Let me pause just for 1 second. This was mentioned on the side in a previous topic, and I want to make sure it's clear. It's certainly not something that is a must to understand now, but I just want to put it on the airwaves so when I say it repetitively, hopefully it becomes really, really clear. But there is a difference between firepower services for the ASA and our threat defense, firepower threat defense image running on the ASA. So that's again why we want to make sure it's very, very clear as to why we bundle these into a classic approach. So you don't get confused a little bit later when you hear us talking about the ASA a couple of different times, and sometimes firepower with threat defense or just firepower services. So understand that there is a difference. So here we're talking about the classic firepower services for the ASA. Now, what's also nice is when we're talking about the classic license approach, they fall into two subcategories, our perpetual and our subscription-based. So the perpetual it's a license that you purchase once, you apply it, and it is good forever and ever, again, perpetual. While the subscription-based, and don't worry, we're going to be going over all of these in much more detail coming up in just a couple slides, but the subscription-based is exactly that. You subscribe to it, it's good for 1, 3, or 5 years, depending upon the feature and the purchase. So once again, folks, that was the classic approach. Now our smart licensing in more detail on this slide. Smart licensing is going to be managed through an actual license portal. That license portal is you log in with an account that you create, and then you link together your purchases with that account in that portal. And there's a token that is generated that is then downloaded to the Firepower Management Center. And the reason why I'm drawing these little arrows to try to make sure this is a clear relationship is there are some environments that do not have straight, unabated access to the internet. For example, let me pause. There are a couple of environments that I've been in where they're military installations. And talking about direct, unrestricted access to the internet is going to get you a room full of laughs. So for those environments where we do not have constant direct access to the web, then you can actually use a smart license satellite server as an in-between, or for lack of a better word, a proxy. But again, what's really nice is if you're in the process of evaluating what license might be best for you, or you turned on a feature and realized, oops, I didn't have the license, you have yourself a 90-day grace period so you don't have to sweat too much while you're trying to get the approval, get your PO number, and then finally get it over to Cisco for the actual license of the feature that you need. So now we're starting to go over a couple of charts here, starting with our threat defense licensing. Remember again, this is going to be a perpetual based license, so once paid for, once added, it never has to be worried about again. Is there going to be a base, which, excuse me for jumping around just a little bit, but the base is going to include, again, user inspection, application inspection, basic switching and routing capabilities, as well as NATing. And then do we want to add on, please note it's included with the software, the Perpetual Firepower Management Center Virtual, and that's going to again go in and add on these other management capabilities under that perpetual based license. Or do we want to start getting very involved in the other licensed options? So hold on tight because each of these are based upon a letter. And what's really nice is we can start adding these together or even adding them on to a system that might already be licensed for other features. So let's back up and start going over this. Again, all of these on this page are going to be term-based. Remember from earlier, 1, 3, or 5-year terms based upon the licenses that are purchased. But folks, you could have your threat defense, intrusion prevention, file control, security intelligence. Those are going to be some features that we go over in other topics. We can have our threat defense with malware added on. We could have our advanced malware protection added on to a system that already has threat defense. We can also do our URL filtering. So please understand, each of these can be added on individually, or they can be combined together to create a system that might have multiple different services that it's performing all at once. So let's do that all over again. The URL filtering is denoted by the C licensed term. So again, we can have our threat defense and URL filtering, our threat defense, anti-malware, and URL filtering. Or again, we can just add URL filtering on, as we just talked about a moment ago, to a system that may already have threat defense or threat defense with malware. And then last but not least, the reason why we're saving this one for last is you might be in a situation where you're heavily dependent upon VPN connections, client-based VPN connections, again with AnyConnect. Well, guys, even AnyConnect has its own licensing approach, whether it's going to be a VPN approach, VPN-only approach, AnyConnect Plus, or AnyConnect Apex. And that's something that we'll go over the licensing of those options in another topic coming up later during our series. But just keep in mind, all four of these options are going to be term-based licenses in a 1, 3, or 5 year approach. Now that we have talked about the classic versus smart licensing, how do we know what are we doing? What features have been licensed? Where are we in our perpetual or our term? So you might remember this is a screenshot of the top set of tabs inside of the Firepower Management Center virtual appliance or physical appliance. We'll just call it an appliance. So again, we would go under System, Licenses, and then please note you have either the Smart licenses or the Classic licenses. You can see registered products, and then I especially like the amount of days. So understand, yes, this is a registered product, sure, but it's registered under an evaluation period, again, evaluation mode, and it looks like you got 89 more days to add in a license, or this feature is going to be unavailable, or again, it's going to be out of compliance. So thank you for watching. Once again, this was just a very high-level overview of our 2 license approaches, whether it's a classic approach for our classic physical or virtual appliances, or it's going to be a smart licensed approach that allows us to license based upon a term and based upon features, and even bundle together features based upon our needs. Once again, thank you for watching.